Hi there, it's Siobhan from enjoyrunning.net. Today I wanted to say a few words about speed. When I'm talking about speed, I'm talking in the context of speed for endurance runners, so 5k onwards we'll say. I'm not talking about the sort of speed that sprinters achieve. Sprinters, through exerting large ground reaction forces, they're landing their feet quite hard on the ground, and then they're achieving a huge distance in the time in which they're in the air. So in their air time, their flight phase, they are going a long distance, and that's really achieved through the use of the ground reaction force, the force down by the foot on the ground and getting the ground reaction back up. Endurance runners simply can't sustain the duration of running they need, say a marathon, a half marathon, whilst executing their running technique in the same manner. And if you've ever tried to do that, say to park run, you know pretty quickly that you can't really keep up a sprint for very long. A study that was released last year by Stephen Priest and colleagues in Salford in the UK, European Journal of Sports Science, looked at the faster end of recreational runners, so men and women who can run a 10k, say between 38 and 42 minutes, compared with runners at the more performance end who can achieve that distance in 32 to 36 minutes. And they noticed that the faster runners, the more performance group, were different from the slower runners, and I say slow in inverted commas. I'd be quite happy with a 42-minute 10k. The difference was that the faster guys and girls were staying in the air for 10% longer duration. So they were going further during their flight phase, essentially, than the more recreational runners. Now, I'm not suggesting that the message for us is to change our style so that we try to bring in more sprinting into it, and we get that flight time increased through bringing the foot down harder on the ground. But what I do think might be a useful adjunct to our training is to use the running person pose as a way of improving the manner in which our foot strikes the floor, the ground, and sweeps backward. Now I'll show you that hanging onto the wall here. When we are running, just looking from my waist down, now ignore the top half, our foot is coming forward, it is meeting the ground at some point, it's sweeping backwards, and then the cycle starts all over again. So you're getting this sort of a look. Now, I know a lot of runners tend to run with stiffer legs, and really that's possibly not the best way to run, but changing running style is a big, big move to be undertaken very slowly, very carefully, because the reason for our individual running styles, it has a lot to do with the history of training, and therefore the physiological makeup of our body, our muscles, how they work, our movement patterns. Big, big topic. Stay away from it, except to make any changes extremely carefully and extremely slowly. Getting back to what I'm talking about today. So this running person movement, which is where you're mimicking the running action, but obviously statically. So I'm on my stance leg here, the left leg, and the right leg is the free leg. And what the running person pose does is it seeks to get the arms and legs doing more or less what you would do when you're running, except of course you're not using the left leg. So it's a bit artificial. But it does help to instill good movement patterns in us. And movement patterns involve our brains communicating with our muscles. So it's a neurological system. And when we train youngsters in athletics, we do movement skills. That's the very basis, the ABC of movement, and it's fundamental to all sports. And it's something that we coach in athletics. But equally well, if I were coaching football, I'd be doing exactly the same thing. Slightly different examples, but it's basic movement skills. For recreation runners in our middle years, executing the movement correctly through something like a running person movement, so getting the foot to meet the ground, and I'll do it side on. So it's sweeping through. So the opposite arm and leg are coming through at the front. Can improve the way that we execute that movement and improve the movement quality at a technical level. And it's worth a try. I'll do it from the side, so the free leg and the free arm are opposite to each other, free leg forward, free arm back, and we just execute that movement, and the leg is sweeping in the ground. It's something that you can do even whilst you're waiting for the kettle to boil. If you work within your range of movement, so don't force anything. If you're tight, you won't be able to get such a high knee. You can do this perfectly safely whilst waiting for the kettle to boil. See you soon.